Okay, today I'm going to go through a couple of questions people had regarding the inventory FRQ that we gave. One of the things that was asked was, did we have to use our variable named item list? And in this problem, it says that we did have to use this. When the problem tells you specific names for your methods or names for your parameters or instance variables, you definitely want to make sure that you use them. A key thing to notice that those names are important is because they use a different font. They use this, computer looking font, this Courier New. So that is definitely something that you would want to look for. Here they give you the sampler code telling you how this would work. So we're creating this new item and we are adding it to our inventory list that we had. And after all of these items have been added, then we are taking a look at this remove products method. And when we remove this product, we are being told how it works based on the fact that there are a total of 300 potato chips. We are told that if we were to call the same method with root beer, it would return 0 because there was nothing to remove and nothing changed. All right. So when we go ahead and look at our solutions, when I was looking at this responses you gave me on the Google form, I noticed that many of you had questions about for each loops, when you can and can't use them, and the remove method. So I'm going to focus my talk on that. So first of all, we always have to make sure we have that variable as private. Our constructor is where we instantiate any variables or objects, specifically our array lists. This add item was just allowing us to add an item to this private array list that somebody outside of the class couldn't access. The get total unit count. Here we're essentially going to go through every single item in our array list and add to it. You could totally do this in a regular for loop. You don't have to use a for each loop, but remember, for each loops make our code much quicker and they allow us to quickly access each item without having to say the array list name dot get I dot and then call the method every single time. So you could have done this method with a regular for loop as well. Now the remove products method is where people were asking, and specifically they were asking if they could have done this problem with a for loop. So I'm going to show that solution in just a minute, but before I do so, I want to address the issue of the why. So when we work with an array list, remember an array list has a flexible size. And with this flexible size, as items are added or removed, the indices all change. So one of the things you have to be careful of is if I were to take, and we've seen this classic problem in class before. Let's say I had an array list with these values. Okay, and I were to go through and for each one, if I encountered a 0, I was going to remove that element. And so let's say we looked at, so these will be our indexes and these will be the values. So this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, okay? And so when I'm on index 0, I check if its value is 0 and it's not, so I go on to the next one. I'm on index 1, I check if its value is 0 and it is, so then I would delete it. Well, here's what ends up happening. When I delete this value, everything scooches down and my for loop goes on to the next value. So now I'm on index 2 and I check its value and its value is 5. Well, the problem is that there was a 0 right next to that other 0 that never got checked. And so this is what we have to be super careful of when we're working with an array list and the remove method. As values are removed, everything shifts down, but if you're in a for loop, the indices continue to go up. And so that's why we say it's better to use a while loop. So within this while loop, we're saying, okay, as long as there's still elements in my list and the current index that I'm on is still, positive, greater than or equals 0, so that I'm not going to have an out of bounds error. I'm going to get that current values type, and if it's what I'm trying to remove, I find out how many there are, and then I remove it. And then I am going to go backwards, and I'm going to keep on doing this. And so in this case, if it doesn't happen to be one I want to remove, then I still go backwards. But that's how a while loop would work for us. Now, another way is to go in a forward direction. So here you'll notice that I'm starting at the end of the array list. So I'm starting at the end. And when you start at the end, you don't have to worry because if I remove this element, it doesn't matter. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, if I started at the beginning, this is where I have to be careful and I only increment that index if I don't remove something. If I do remove something, then I leave the index where it is and I recheck that same index. Okay. Now, I put together a third solution for you guys based on the questions you had, talking about a for loop solution. Now, when we learned about this in class, we talked about how if you're going to use a for loop, if you're going to use a for loop for removing elements in an array list, you want to start at the end of the array list. And this is for that exact reason we talked about a minute ago, so that you don't skip consecutive values. So if something gets removed, it's always the last element, and there's nothing before it that's going to get that will get missed. Okay, you'll just end up shifting the things forward, and you might double check something, but you're not going to accidentally remove something twice. All right, so now I believe that was it for this FRQ. So responses are pretty positive. You guys said you did pretty good. It was just the remove that was the biggie. Okay. All right, so if you have any other specific questions that I did not answer, feel free to send me an email, or I'll set up a Zoom next week and I can follow up with any other questions you guys have. All right, have a great weekend.